I wanted to welcome everyone to the Taste Talks. I'm Christine Duke. I'm the Continuing Education Program Manager at Kendall College at National Louis University. And today we're having actually a really exciting Taste Talk where we're going to talk a little bit about food competitions and food reality TV and what you kind of have to do to get into that. Such an interesting topic, and so many people want to be the next food star or have some kind of opportunity in that field. So before we go ahead and get started, we will have Sruthi Swaminathan talking to us about this today. But before she starts, we're going to actually watch a little something, and I haven't seen this myself either. So one moment, I am going to share my screen in just 1 second. YouTube is not wanting to pause for me. All right, folks, just bear with me 1 second here. All right. Thank you all for your patience.
Hi, my name is Sruthi Swaminathan, and I think I should be the winner of the next Urban Space Challenge because A, I went to the best culinary school in the world. I'm not even going to mention what it is because it's so obvious. The restaurant that I run and own has received not 1, not 2, but 3 Michelin stars every year for the last 30 years that I've run it. I'm obviously lying. My background is I have a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Chicago. And after that, I went and worked in corporate in consumer insights. So part of my job was looking at different demographics and different markets across the world and identifying how we could improve or optimize our products based on the needs of the customers in that market, and then informing either communications or product innovations based on that. So I did that for 5 years, and in April 2018, I had my baby. And soon after that, I realized that my time, my patience, my energy, and my sleep were all limited, and whatever I had of all those things, I wanted to spend it on my son. So last November, I quit my corporate job and decided to pursue what's been my number one passion for the last 8 or more years, which is cooking. So back in 2011, I started cooking. I have a food blog. It's called Kitchening Around, and it's so named because it aptly describes my cooking style. So I like to cook with what I have on hand, just something that's easy, simple, delicious, and most importantly, fuss-free and tasty. So I've been doing that for the last 8 years, but starting in November, I decided to devote my time to more food-focused projects. So right now I'm an independent consultant. I've done marketing work for a local Chicago food startup. I'm currently working for a nonprofit helping to build out their partnerships and strategy in the Chicago area, as well as some of their communications pieces. I write for a magazine every month. I'm working on a book about being a new mom and cooking during that time. So when this opportunity presented itself, I was really excited because I thought it was a cool way to apply my background in research, in business, and in food, which was mostly self-taught, to a brand new business and try it out and see what happens. And the reason I picked my concept, which is Mexican-Indian fusion, is because although I live in Chicago and there are plenty of restaurants here in anything you can imagine, I haven't come across anything personally that combines those two cuisines or those two flavors. And for years now, my friends and family have been my guinea pigs as I just pull together whatever I have in the kitchen to make something, and unintentionally and unexpectedly, I end up coming up with these I don't want to call them hodgepodge, but just these sort of fusion flavors because I'm cooking with what's on hand. So that's really where I got the idea for the concept. And while I've been doing this at home and as a hobby for all this time, I think I'm ready to check it out and see how it works in the masses, how this concept works in the masses, how my food is received by the masses. And I also think I should be the winner of this challenge because I think I bring a sort of fresh perspective to this world. So given that I didn't go to culinary school and I haven't owned a restaurant, I'm coming in with different kinds of ideas that could complement some of the chefs that you guys already have in the hall that are more established. And I look forward to learning from them, being inspired by them, and basically just trying out a new venture. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. I don't think things like that together can be a little bit nerve-wracking and everything because you're kind of working in a vacuum and not knowing exactly who you're speaking to and such.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the experience and.
Sure. So you guys heard a little taste of what is nice because I took all these notes and now I don't have to say most of it because I forgot that I said it in that video. So what you just saw there is my entry video for a food competition. And the food competition was called the Urban Space Challenge, and it took place in Chicago. It was a food hall where they put out a Chicago-wide competition. Urban Space is really big in New York already. And what they are is they're kind of an immersive space for creative people, for entrepreneurs to kind of get something started. And this in particular happened to be a food hall. And like I mentioned in the video, I had spent a year kind of dabbling in all sorts of things. I knew I didn't want to run my own restaurant. And I thought, maybe I could run a food stall. But to be honest, I didn't even really think that. I just thought, hey, this could be a fun thing to do. Let me do it. And like I mentioned in the video, to rewind a little bit, my background is in neuroscience. So that's what my PhD is in. It has nothing to do with food. I didn't go to culinary school, but I had this passion for food and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with that? What am I going to do to make it a career or even kind of expand on this passion? So I applied to that competition on a whim. I heard about it because my neighbor just happened to mention it. She said, oh, have you heard of Urban Space? You should think about applying. And I applied on a whim. And I think I was sitting exactly where I'm sitting right now to film that video. I didn't practice it because I was so nervous about making the video that I didn't want to just kind of say something. And I've always been kind of awkward about like watching myself on video or, man, why do I sound like that? Why do I say that? Not to mention this added layer of extreme imposter syndrome, which is basically trying to think like, why would I get to do that? That of course they're going to be more qualified than me. Of course there's whatever. But then I just applied on a whim, and I started off with basically the most absurd lie I could tell, saying I had Michelin stars. Like that, obviously none of that is true, but I think that came out as part of my nervousness. And to fast forward a little bit, I found out 4 days later that I was one of 3 finalists chosen for that food competition. And I wasn't expecting that. So when I got the call, they said, hey, there was different components. There was that video. There was also, I had mentioned I had a food blog, and so they probably checked out my food blog. I sent, other stuff I'd done, and it was based off of that. And then they released the other 2 finalists, and they were accomplished chefs. Like one of them had his own restaurant, another one had her own spice company, and she had it all branded and everything. And I was like, man, what have I gotten myself into? It was this moment of just being very, very scared about it. But the exciting thing was, it was fun because it was scary. It was another step I was taking in this journey of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was probably one of the most fun things I have ever done. Spoiler alert, I didn't win. As you saw in the video, I pitched an Indian Mexican fusion menu. So the idea of this competition was, okay, so if you win, you're going to get your own food stall in this new food hall. It was going to be, for those of you that are in Chicago, it was in the Loop right on Washington and Dearborn or something. It was the Urban Space Food Hall. They had another location opening up in the Sears Tower, Willis Tower. And all of that's on hold now, obviously, but that was the idea. I got to go and tour the construction site, see where the actual food stall would be for the winner of this challenge. And part of the reason they were doing this is to introduce the restaurant space or the food space to some chefs or some talent that maybe wouldn't have gotten to do that otherwise, either because they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the connections, they didn't have whatever, the access. And the nice thing about Urban Space was they really put the focus on the vendors in the space. So they do a lot of your marketing for you. They advertise you as an up and coming chef or what have you. So once I got into it, I was suddenly hit with the realization that there is now a 1 in 3 chance that I would have to run my own food stall. So if you go back into my Google search history from October 2019, you will find a phrase that says how to run a food stall. How to run a food stall. I cook for 20 people one time and I'm like, all right, 2-week break, so what? And then I very quickly realized it meant 14-hour days if you're lucky, 7 days a week. And I was like, oh my God, like, can I do that? But I was like, all right, well, it's too late now. And at one point I was even like asking myself, I was like, should I self-sabotage? Like, should I just purposely not do a good job on this menu? But I didn't do that. I pitched an Indian Mexican fusion menu, as I said. Some of the things on there, actually one of the things on there.
Was the elotes on there?
The elotes. So some of you I recognize joined for the elotes class. The Indian style elotes was born from that competition. I also had paneer and poblano paratha burritos. I had dry curry chorizo tacos, which is maybe an idea for a future class. Those are pretty good with like a raita, like a cold cucumber raita, like a yogurt. And it was a lot of fun. So what I did was I woke up at 3 a.m. the morning of the competition, because what they wanted you to do was kind of cook everything in advance and then bring it to the site. So do any of you know where Erie Cafe is? It's in River North. Yeah. So the competition itself was there and it was going to be aired on WGN. So there were 4 judges, all like restaurateurs or chefs or whatever, which was, again, of course, intimidating. And like,
and Lee Euler was one of the judges, correct?
Lee Euler was one of the judges, which is how I got in touch with Christine. So that goes to, doing things, even if you never know what cool people you'll meet through it. And yeah, I presented my food. WGN was there. They turned the cameras on and I'm pretty sure I burned a couple tortillas because I just wasn't paying attention to that. I couldn't do 2 things at once.
We have students volunteering to be sous chefs if you need to open a food stall. So.
I might have to. Yeah, I might have to do that now. But the cool thing about this is the opportunities that opened up. So there's a photo from the moment they announced the winner, right? So I showed my food to the judges. I kind of explained to them what it was, how I came up with it, the different flavors and textures and blah, 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 like all that food stuff I talked about. And then when they announced the winner, it was John who won, who made this unbelievable barbecue, which I've been meaning to go pick up. It's called North Branch.
It's North Branch Chicken right now. I actually live walking distance from it.
Okay, so it's excellent.
Yes.
And John and his wife are super sweet. We spent a lot of time talking to them, and he ended up winning But the funny thing is, the moment they announced the winner, like everybody showed their dishes, then the judges went in the back, had like a super serious conversation. And then they came back out and then they were like, and the winner is, and then they said, John from North Branch Gourmet. And there's a photo of me from that exact moment. I've said this to a lot of people, where I look a little too happy to have lost. It's just this look of like,
Ah.
pure relief of like, man, I can sleep now. Like, I don't have to work 14-hour days and stuff. But then I was also like, but what a cool experience. I would do that all over again to lose again. Like
Yeah.
I'd gladly do that.
And
but
you really learn a lot about yourself in doing those things, and it's really something that can help with your confidence in
Yeah.
so many other arenas. Like, especially, culinary students, they're going out and they're staging,
Yep.
looking for a job. Maybe they're not necessarily looking for a job in a regular restaurant or something like that, and they're more nervous about having to talk to an R&D company in an interview. But doing things like this could get you out of that comfort zone and make it more comfortable.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Christine, because like this is one very specific example, and it just so happens to be me, and I just so happen to have done this one thing. But for me, the way I think of it is, it is scary to do something that you don't have an official degree in. It is scary to do things when you don't have any connections in the industry, or you don't know some of you, I know you've joined my classes where I'm like, I think this is why you add this at this point. Is that right? And then everyone will be like, yep, because I'm not a classically French trained chef, and nor do I claim to be. But for me, the exciting thing about this is I was scared, but it was so much fun, and it was kind of a confidence booster to kind of say like, yeah, I could do it. It didn't matter that other people were way more established or had XYZ, because I still applied. I still made it to the finals, and I still learned a lot. And I met Lee Euler, and then I met Christine, so that's how that worked out. And there is something to say about thinking about what your marketable skills are beyond what your degree is in, or beyond what classes you take. I went into neuroscience. I feel like in a way I sort of fell into it. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking in advance. Do I want to do neuroscience? Am I in love with the brain? I didn't think that. But then once I started doing it, I did enjoy parts of it. But I also recognized that my passion was in food. I've had a food blog for almost 10 years now, and it's been fun to see that grow. So I'm going to pause here for any questions, and then I can go on.
I think here, I'm going to throw one in there. So what are some tips that you would give to anyone who is looking to do any kind of pitch for a food competition, reality show, that kind of any of those kind of situations?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is don't look at what other people have done. If I had looked at, because these, like, people were tagging these and naming these videos and putting them as public playlists and videos on YouTube. So if I wanted, I could have gone on there and said urban space competition entry video and kind of gotten a sample of what everyone has done. But I think it's because I didn't do that my video looked nothing like anybody else's who applied. I don't think anyone else came on there lying about having Michelin stars. But then I also think, like, you want to do something that they're going to remember. You hear this all the time with resumes, and I think it shows even more here. And hopefully it showed a little bit of personality. And I'd like to think, hey, maybe that's why maybe they thought I'd crack some horrible jokes on TV. Like, I don't know, but it didn't matter the reason, because it still got me to kind of that part. The next thing I would say is, like, always stay in touch with people. This sounds like a very vague thing, but none of these things would have happened that I've done since I completed my PhD. I worked at Unilever. I did consumer insights. Like, everything that's happened since I left would not have happened if I didn't just take initiative to stay in touch with people. And sometimes it's draining, sometimes it's uplifting, but I've, at times I've had rules with myself to say, okay, you need to contact 3 new people a day, but not sort of superficially. Like, I have a reason for contacting them. And it's
Mhm.
almost never to say, can I have a job where you work? I'm genuinely contacting these people to say, like, I've seen the kind of stuff you did. Do you have advice for me? Um, do you think I'm going about this the right way? What do you think about this? And in through those conversations is how I eventually got led to even meeting my neighbor, who then happened to mention this, and all it takes is one. Um, so that's another thing I would say. And the third thing I would say is, like, don't try not to have imposter syndrome. I don't know.
If
It's
if if I like reacted badly to my imposter syndrome, there wouldn't be taste talk. So
oh yeah, there you go. Like, it's just a scary thing,
you
and
just do it. So
you just have to do it. And like, and I another thing I would say is, like, don't wait for anything to be perfect. Like, I have a thing where, like, I want something to look exactly a certain way or feel a certain way or sound a certain way before I'm willing to share it. Even my website, I didn't want to share the link with anyone until I thought it was absolutely perfect, but turns out it's a living site that changes as I keep
Mhm.
doing different things.
Yeah, it's constantly growing with you and changing with you.
Yeah. So those are probably the things I would say. And, like, stay in touch with the people after. Like I said, I kept in touch with Lee. She introduced me to you. I was initially going to do in-person classes at
Mhm.
Kendall, um, which I still hope to do when all of this blows
Oh,
over.
there are plans for that to happen in the future when we are fully back in the kitchens and such. So
Yeah, but it's been so fun to do this in the meantime, and this is a scary thing to do too. So I don't know which of you were there from my first video, but I don't think I took like one deep breath that entire video. I was just super nervous. I was like, man, these people are like looking at me to provide some decent tasting recipe. Um, but am I capable of providing that? But then I feel like as I've kept doing them, it's become more fun and less
yeah.
sort of mechanical.
No, and you keep learning from, each thing that you do. And that's kind of like with this whole, going out and doing these things and putting yourself out there. That's what our students need to think about too. It's like
Yeah.
you're you're gonna grow so much from trying something out. And if you fail, it's not gonna be a failure. You're gonna come out of it with possibly even more knowledge and understanding and new ideas than if you were successful necessarily.
Yeah, and I can give the example of being in a PhD program. When you're in a program like that, at least when I was there, so I defended in 2012. It's been 8 years, and almost exactly 8 years. And at the time, at least, when you're thinking about career prospects, like what you want to do next or options for what you can do with this degree, they weren't as branched out as maybe they're different now, but they definitely weren't as branched out as I would have liked, thinking about future career options. Um, but even if you're so I would kind of think, well, what are my marketable skills? I know how to do experiments in a lab setting, but it's a lot. You pick up things that you
Translate.
don't realize until you try something else.
No, definitely that's something that translates into the culinary field too. So
Yeah, and in
mhm.
culinary, I can imagine people pick up so many skills other than like the perfect way to braise X. I there's I'm sure there are skills in it, and it's something that if any of the students too, if they're watching this video now or later, if they have questions on it, I'm happy to kind of talk to them or email with them, because it has been a process. Like I said, it's been 8 years since graduate school, and now I feel like I'm sort of in the rhythm and
Mhm.
sort of figured it out, but then still constantly changing.
No, it's like, I think so many people in their careers and, their time after school and everything. I mean, not barring a pandemic, it's difficult to kind of like figure out where you're going next and what your next opportunities are. Like, do you leave your city? Do you, stay and go with the connections you already have? It's like there's so many different leaps that you kind of have to take.
Mhm.
But one of the great things is that, our Kendall students, and I'm sure you guys all know because you work so closely with the career services team, they're such a great assistance. And all the time I'm connecting with different kinds of businesses that aren't necessarily places you would think someone with a culinary degree would necessarily be looking to apply. But I pass all those businesses towards them and be like, look, this is a great job opportunity. This is something that's really good for our students, and might be the right fit for someone who wasn't necessarily even thinking of this. So they have lots of great ideas to bring to the table for them.
Yeah, and I would even think of like every opportunity as sort of a launch pad for something else. It's definitely been the case for me. So I mentioned a few times, I met Lee Euler during this, and I met you through that. Another thing that happened is the news outlet that was there for that competition was WGN. And yes, I love cooking and I love kind of sharing the food itself with people, but I also love sharing how I made it and talking about it and telling a story about blah, blah, blah. So then I was like, man, like, wouldn't it be cool to cook something on TV? And as soon as that thought came into my head, like, I couldn't not do it. I couldn't not try it, I guess.
Mhm.
So I think it was like 2 weeks after the competition, I wrote to all of the Chicago area news stations. So I looked at the editors there. I tracked didn't track and stalk. I
Hunt down and discovered the information to contact these people legitimately.
I found their weaknesses, and I was like, how can I I just wrote to them, and I was like, hey guys, I just did this thing on WGN, check out the video, here's my blog, would love to come on and do a food segment. And then I also checked out like who they had featured before, what kinds of stuff, like, cause some of the stations just wrote back and they were like, yeah, we don't do food stuff like that. And some of them were like, yeah, we don't do this, we don't do that. But then WGN wrote back and was like, cool, want to cook something in January? And I was like, oh, there's my one. It just took that like one person to say yes. So then within a week, I had said, yes, I'll do it. Sent them the thing I was going to make, which was it was a beef pilau. So it's like a ground beef and rice dish, which is another thing I could do a class with here. I think people would like it. And yeah, I went, and I remember distinctly this day. It was like January 16th. And when we pull into the parking lot, I had a text from the coordinator that said, what was it? It was like some like Donald Trump impeachment hearing update or something. And they were like,
oh, did you get bumped for that?
I mean, I was about to. So I was about to get bumped because they said, we have people talking at that time with these details. So just so you know, we might have to cancel your segment. And I was like, cancel my segment? Like, no. And then luckily it happened right after my segment. Oh. And if people are interested, Christine, I sent you the link to the video where I
I'm gonna send it out when I send the next reminder. I will send it to everyone in the email. Okay, awesome. So if you are not on our email list and you want to be able to see this segment we're talking about, email me at taste@nl.edu to get on the email list so I can send it to you, or just request it from me there too. So
yeah. And so then you may say like, okay, great, you went on TV one time, like what's your next goal? It's like, yeah, would I like to have like my own show on TV and stuff? Yeah, but I also love doing other things, so I think what helps is not being bound to one idea. And it is nice to have flexibility to say, oh, I choose to do this, I choose to do that, but I like not being bound to one thing, or I get kind of claustrophobic about like, is this it forever? Mm-hmm. Like, am I going to do this job forever? It's nice to have those options. And that then helped, talking about it being a launch pad for something, that was something I could put on my website. So on my personal website, which also I can send to you, Christine, if people are interested in looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Where I kind of put in like, what is my brand? What services do I want to offer? What is my expertise? How can I help? And then telling that story in a way where regardless of who the audience is, they find which segment they kind of fall into, or which bucket of services they'd like to take advantage of. So doing that and having that video and having the competition and having my consulting projects that came from that on the website, then it just kind of adds on itself, where then people are like, oh, you've done all these things. Have you considered X or have you considered Y? So that's kind of what happened. I mean, with that, I then launched a pop-up dinner series at my home, which I might have mentioned in an earlier class. I launched it, of course, right before COVID, and I had to stop them after 2 of them. But I've done 2 kind of multi-course dinners where I used a platform called Eat With, where you can go on. I could go on as a host and put in, say, okay, I'm on this date making this food. This is the menu. Here's the ticket price. And anyone can go on there and buy a ticket and show up at my house.
It's such a cool concept.
It was very cool, you know, and you meet people that you wouldn't normally meet because we're so used to kind of staying in our own pods and in our own bubbles. But there was such a range of people that came, and some of them I still keep in touch with. You know, some of them are like, let me know about future events. Knowing that there's a demand for that and that people see value in that is then an added encouragement to keep doing it. But then when that stopped, I had to then pivot to, you know, then I started doing these talks. I'm now contracting with a research company, and it's a number of things, but I think it's also going to be interesting to see how post-COVID PC, I guess, like what things are going to change. Like at what point am I going to feel comfortable having 14 strangers in my home, like eating at my dining table?
Yeah.
That's miles away, but we will get there. And I'm looking forward to doing that. And if I'm ever doing that, I'll let you know too. If you want
to help.
Yeah.
So we did have a question come into the chat that's been there for a while, and I don't want to ignore it, but I haven't had the opportune time to put it in. But someone has said that a lot of your recipes are comfort food for her. So wanted to know if there's any neurological connection or comment you have to say about that.
Jokes, Nancy, you would ask that. Yeah, I have no comments about that, because as much as my research was not on the neurobiology of like food. I know there's a whole body of work on that stuff. I can just say, you eat slower, you'll get full, and then you won't overeat. Like I can say stuff like that. I really do not know what brain benefits any of these foods could have, I guess. I know a few years ago there was a drink, it was called like neuro something. And it was like selling like crazy. And I was getting so angry because I was like, there's no way that drinking this changes your brain chemistry to magically be able to do certain things that you couldn't do before.
No.
But, you know, but that's a whole other field. I remember, this kind of reminds me, I haven't thought about this person in a long time, but in grad school, we'll just say there was a person who also had a food blog. And this person like linked it to neuroscience and linked it to scientific kind of things and why certain things are good for certain things in the brain. And I thought it was an entertaining read, but then it stressed me out to think, should I do that? Because I was like I kind of wanted to keep my research brain and like a Roy.
You would say that, Roy. And I appreciate that comment, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
For those of you watching this on tape, I know you can't see the chat, so the comment came in that booze does a good job of altering brain chemistry, and this is from someone who loves to attend Wine Wednesdays and Thirsty Thursdays. So.
Oh, yeah.
So yes.
Well, you're welcome, but I don't overindulge. It's just an observation. I see others out there. They
no, and we always Hey, we always say on wine, well, I need to keep reminding everyone on Wine Wednesdays and Thirsty Thursdays, not to overindulge because you don't want to have an accident going from the living room to the bedroom. So,
Yeah. I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So always in moderation with alcohol. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, my aunt sent something. What did she say? Oh, comfort foods are easy and quick to make.
yeah.
Yes. You know, you just kind of add the stuff you like and you make something great. So one thing I will say is for the Christine, I told you this for a couple of the sessions that my parents watched. My mom's big comment there, rightfully so, was like, your dishes are like need to she was like, you need to replace your dishes because there's marks all over that. And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay. So then I got a couple new pots, and I'm already thinking, I'm like, what am I going to make in them? And one of them is a casserole dish, and those are known to be great for making any kind of comfort food, so like lasagna and other things. So if anyone has recipes that I should be making in my new casserole dish, I would love to hear.
I'm wondering if you should create some kind of like Indian enchilada fusion kind of situation happening there.
Idea.
Anyone else? I'm seeing some nodding happening. So yeah, an Indian enchilada of some sort.
Yeah,
So.
I can imagine it. Something with like a curry sauce or some kind of like a
You
sauce.
had me at curry, so yeah.
Like a sauce you would make for maybe butter chicken, but then put it on veggie enchiladas. Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah. So we're ready to be a little think tank here on this.
Wow,
So.
awesome. And then does anyone have any other questions? Like, I guess my point of all this, and hopefully this will be useful to some of the students who watch this later, is that you're not tied to your degree at all. And it is comforting and easy and the word coastable. And by that, what I mean is like you could just be somewhere and you could just kind of coast and be like, yep, got this. But then at least for me, like it just was not, it was great that I had that opportunity, but I needed something more after a few years of doing it. And this has been my way of doing it. It's not like an A to B type trajectory that I've had, but I would say the last couple years is probably the most fun and the most exciting it's been for me, exploring the kinds of things I want to do career wise than before, when it was more structured or regimented, or you had an official company and an official title and official deadline. Like it's a very different life.
Yeah. And you have to really, step out of those comfort zones, take those leaps.
Mm-hmm.
And, you never know what you're going to find yourself stumbling into. And again, like, I want to just touch back on one other thing you said. It's that those connections.
Yeah.
And like reconnecting with people and coming to it not as oh, I need this from you, or like, come at it with something a little bit more substantial and a little bit more meaty. Or like, if you see that someone else you have a connection with is up to something and doing something that's interesting, ask them how they're doing it. Ask them for
yeah.
a lot of people are really excited to share a lot of that information too. So
no, totally.
yeah.
I see a question from Roy. From your blog, what's your best culinary recommendation or greatest hit? So my blog has kind of been on pause for a little bit, just because I've been trying to migrate things to my new site and other things have come up. But I can send over a specific recipe for this. One of my favorite things on the blog is a dry spiced chicken. And I can do that for a class. We're having all these ideas for classes now. I couldn't think of anything, Christine, when you asked me, and you were like, well,
you're like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And now you're like, oh, now I have a million ideas.
Yes. The great thing about dry spiced chicken is it's exactly what it sounds like. It has a lot of onion and green chili, and it's not in a gravy. It's and by dry, I don't mean like, I just am realizing how this could sound like, oh, the meat's really dry. No, just
the rub's dry.
Or gravy. Yeah, the rub's dry. And you add a bunch of Indian seasonings to it with onion, garlic, ginger, and green chilies, and you just toss it. And it is excellent in tacos. It's excellent in tacos. You could probably even put them in those enchiladas. You could put them in those Indian style enchiladas and, have a light sauce.
Yeah.
What else would I say is super, super
Oh
excellent?
yes, and a cold margarita. Thank you, Gemma.
Yeah.
Always good with the drink recommendations there.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And then another dish that I would probably say is one of my favorites from the blog. Oh, this was an early one, probably from like 2013, is a spicy goat cheese spaghetti. It sounds very basic, and in many ways it is, but it has like sun-dried tomatoes. It has a little bit of pesto. It has red pepper flakes, and then it has goat cheese kind of stirred into it at the very end, and it's bomb. You
That
could probably
sounds
add some
good.
like ground meat or something to it if you wanted.
Okay, we got another question here. As compared to Indian and Mexican cuisine fusion, any thoughts on another possible extreme or extraordinary fusion concept that would be eatable, of course?
Yeah. So one thing that comes to mind right away is my college roommate and one of my close friends, Lee. She, I think it was her, she went to Iceland, and she was saying the food there, and she's a big foodie. Like she cooks now, but she's also like an artist. I mean, she's wonderful. That's another story. But like she went to Iceland, and she was telling me she was kind of disappointed by the food. So whenever I travel, my biggest thing is food. So if I go somewhere, even if the place isn't that great, if the food is good, like I'll 100% want to go back. You know, that makes the trip for me. So when she said the food wasn't good, but the scenery was amazing, I was like, oh man. But then I kind of took it as like a challenge, and I
Gotta find the good food in Iceland.
yeah, well, finding good food, but then also understanding like what is the thing they eat. You know, they eat a lot of seafood. I think they eat whale.
Whale, yeah, I was gonna say that whale is actually part of the diet.
Part of
And
the diet. And she was also saying that it wasn't as seasoned or spiced or kind of didn't have as many flavors. So I'm not promising, you know, blue whale curry for our next class.
but
But I
maybe you
will
could use a little kick in the butt from some of the Indian spices.
I'm just saying, like, but that's a good question. Like, Vijay Uncle asked this question. Like, I think it might be a good thing to be like, how can you take a dish that's normally very bland or you wouldn't eat, and what would you do to change it to kind of make it good? And at least for me, because I love spice, it would be heat. It would probably be some acidity. I'm not going to say salt, fat, acid, heat, because that's like the book and it's going to be some copyright thing. But like, definitely some acid and some spice, I would say, can make most things better. Um, how do you spice whale blubber? I don't know. Whale blubber
You'd
is,
need a lot of spice, I would think, because I think it'd be a big product. Or you'd have to cook it down a lot first.
but is whale blubber similar to like
That's
high
probably more
fat?
fat. So it's like I mean this that we could like go down a whole rabbit hole here, kind of discussing and wanting to find out more about like the marbleization of whale meat and
Yeah.
stuff, and really, and it's like, does it really marbleize because they have that blubber layer? So is it more lean meat, or I don't know, because whale is not one thing that I have eaten as of yet.
Yeah.
So I'm not yet familiar with it, but it's all of this is just such fascinating, such fascinating things to ponder about. So
Yeah, definitely. And you wonder if it's just fat. I'm thinking of something that's super fatty. So I know when you buy ground beef, you can choose the level of fat that you want in that, and the level of fat helps either make it more crispy and adds more flavor. You know, but then if you just have like a hunk of fat or something, I don't know. It's probably something I'd have to try out. So I'd probably say Icelandic food is something I'd take as a challenge.
yeah, it's like, could you make some kind of a cracklin or something with whale? I mean, I don't. These are all, like I said, things to ponder about.
Yeah.
So, but I think we've kind of gone off course a little bit. Does anyone have, Roy, it's okay. I love when you take us off course. It's always entertaining. So,
Yeah.
does anyone have any more questions before we kind of wrap it up for today? Anything about food competitions and stuff? And I know, Sruthi, you and I have talked about some potential potential other topics that can kind of like spin off of this in the future, that if there's interest in it, we'd definitely be happy to do, maybe talking about some things such as, you know, personal branding and using, you know, because that just applies to that can apply to everyone in so many different things. So and between you and I think we could definitely have some good discussions on personal branding on your side of things, and even bring my side of things with branding into it as well. So yeah. I think a beet cutlet shallow fry, maybe, I don't know. So whale, we'll have to think about that in the future.
Well, whale or no whale? I think Ruggle Uncle asked that question. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the thing with beet is, like, I don't like beet as a vegetable in general, but one thing, Chitrat, that you can tell him is, you know, that fish subscription service that we do, that I sent him once. I'm actually thinking about the next time I get, it's called Seed to Table, for anyone who's wondering. It's a fish subscription service where they catch the fish, and within 48 hours, they fillet it, freeze it, and kind of ship it to you. So it's super fresh. It's really good. They have a bunch of different varieties. And I've been testing out different recipes with different kinds of fish that I may not have experienced before. So next time I want to make cutlets with the fish, but to get some of those veggies, I was thinking about putting beet in there for the color. You know, just boil them ahead of time and then mash them in with the fish pieces. I think that would actually be really good.
Or even like golden beets too.
Yeah.
That'd be beautiful with like a really light colored fish and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've kind of wrapped it up for the day. Anything else you would like to say before we finish up, Sruthi?
Oh, well, good. Thanks everyone for joining. I see some familiar faces from my other talks. I love that you guys are joining, and I hope these are somewhat useful, and if not, at least a little bit entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you all. Again, this will be up on YouTube later on. So if you miss the beginning, or you think a friend would really benefit from watching this, please let them know to check out our the Taste Talks YouTube channel. More things coming next week. And if you have any topic requests at all, anything culinary, hospitality, or somehow remotely related to those two big topics, please reach out and let us know, because I want to start planning things for 2021 as the Taste Talks continue. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again, Sruthi. And everyone, have an amazing weekend, okay?
Bye.
Happy
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you.